Feels like the last time I made a video about this exact topic was like 2 days ago. It was September 29th. Oh boy. That was when I was talking about layoffs at Epic, and this time we are talking about layoffs at Bungie and also just like the broader things happening. I wanted to wait a little while to make this video just because I wanted to talk to a bunch of people. I spoke to friends who worked at Bungie, and especially after like my last video was so just passionate / emotional. I don't want to just make content every time somebody loses their goddamn job. Like, what an awful feeling. But I did want to take the opportunity to dive into this deep. I have made a short about it, but let's go a little harder today. We're going to talk about the layoffs at Bungie and talk about Destiny specifically because I feel so strongly about Destiny in so many directions. I used to play a lot of Destiny. I have not played in a while, which is probably part of why this has happened. A lot of ex-players like me have stopped playing the game. But I think there are maybe things that the games community doesn't really understand about layoffs sometimes. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about what we can do about it. So I spoke to two separate people who have been organizing unions in the games industry. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, okay? First up, obviously, in case you missed the news somehow, around 100 people were laid off from Bungie, supposedly due to Destiny 2 underperformance. Sourcing IGN here, who said they had an internal town hall meeting in the last Monday that impacted multiple departments, addressing a round of layoffs. And Bungie CEO Pete Parsons allegedly told remaining employees that the company had kept the right people to continue work on Destiny 2, which, wow, what an awful thing to say. I don't know if you were trying to be comforting by saying that, but did you for some reason not think that would go public? There are people involved in this who moved to Seattle to work for Bungie, uprooted their whole lives, and now have nothing and no job, and just nothing for the hard work. That's what kills me about it. Layoffs are awful. They are happening across a lot of industries right now, and I think it's only going to get worse in the games industry. I'm aware that this is not exclusive to the games industry. It's just the industry that I love and have dedicated my whole life to, so that's the one that I'm talking about. So for Bungie specifically, I could repeat everything I said in the video when I made it about Epic, which I'll leave a link to below in case you didn't see it, which is basically just that it sucks so bad, and my heart breaks for all of these people, and it's just the passion that goes into game development, to have that just be discarded as though it is valueless, I guess because it is to a corporation, is just so uniquely brutal. Anyone with any skill that would qualify them to work at a AAA studio like Bungie could make more money doing something else, working for a different company with that same skill set. You work in games because you love games. You put in long hours because you love making games and you love your team and you love the community. And so for the companies to turn around, which of course they do, I get it. Like, it's not realistic to assume that because you love your job that you get to keep it, but that doesn't make it any less heartbreaking. They just lay them off. They just get rid of them. Totally discarded despite the sacrifices that people have to make to get there in the first place, and it's just, ugh, it's so hard to think about. But again, all of the sentiments I shared in the Epic video are the same. There are a lot of concerns that I have about the direction of the games industry across the board, about games as service, about monetization, about subscription services. I'm going to make a video about advertising because I'm increasingly very, very concerned about that. I think I last touched on it maybe 2-3 years ago, but I think that is going to get a lot worse. But we're just going to be like a little bit more factual here today, though I did want to address some things I've seen people say on the internet. So, IGN confirmed reports that Bungie took responsibility for the layoffs rather than laying them at the feet of parent company Sony. Parsons told employees that layoffs were largely due to underperformance of Destiny 2 over the last year, as well as lower than expected pre-orders for upcoming expansion The Final Shape, which is a tough one because it's like, well, if you're not performing, then yeah, you kind of have to make cuts somewhere. It's really frustrating though in the case of Destiny 2 because Bungie's so good at what they do in terms of like, I genuinely think, don't know if it's a hot take, they have the best first-person shooting mechanics consistently. Obviously, they partly pioneered them, not totally, but partly reinvention, if you will. And Destiny 2 feels so good to play. There are just so many other issues that made a lot of players tune out. I think in the particular case of Destiny 2, and this is really just my opinion, never should have been free to play. I think that was the wrong decision to make for this particular game. But we know that player engagement was massively down and recent revenue goals have been down by, I think it was 45 or 48%. And so for now, it seems like they are putting a ton of work into The Final Shape, which has been delayed to June 2024. Marathon also being delayed to 2025 and has been in development since 2019. Employees were also told that Destiny 2 player sentiment was at an all-time low, which I'm inclined to agree with, and sources tell IGN that this issue had been repeatedly flagged to leadership for months before the layoffs, with employees begging for necessary changes to win the players back, which again is why it sucks so bad. You can have the people on the ground, the dev team, be like, this is clearly what this game needs, please listen to us, and still have the executives, the people in corporate say no, and then the community gets mad at the developers, even though the developers are the ones who are advocating for the community. That's like literally their job in a lot of cases, the people who work in community management. Alanah Rupert was their community manager, who I think is a fantastic person and is so dedicated and so in love with Destiny. She was one of the people who was laid off. She was 100% the person who was getting screamed at every day and advocating for players to have it be ignored and then get laid off. Like, that's the reality of the situation, right? Other than that, employees also told IGN that they felt really frustrated with the layoffs, given the company had just completed work on a brand new headquarters, which was more than double the size of its previous office. Parsons was pretty heavily criticized for this tweet, saying, "Today's a sad day at Bungie as we say goodbye to colleagues who have all made a significant impact on our studio. What these exceptional individuals have contributed to our games and Bungie culture has been enormous and will continue to be a part of Bungie long into the future," which is certainly true, but it's also like, damn, if only you didn't do the thing you did. You know? The teams that were hit were community, art, engineering, recruiting, legal, audio, QA, creative studios, and IT, with impacts across both teams. And those impacted, thankfully, are receiving 3 months of severance and Cobra health benefits, and I just so badly hope that they all land on their feet and find new positions. But to expand, there are two things that I really want to say to audiences. I have seen so much, and I hate to even validate this stance, but it is a stance. I've seen so much of, well, the game sucks, these people deserved it. It is a fact that Destiny is being played less and enjoyed less. There are issues with Destiny, which again, so much because the core of Destiny game is so good. And I am one of those people. I stopped playing Destiny 2 after playing tons. The reality is the people who are laid off and have their lives impacted here are not the ones that are responsible for the decisions. Like I said, they knew. There is no way that these people aren't advocating to improve the game, aware that there are issues with it. Everyone who works in the games industry wants to work on something good. I'm sure I've said that a million times before. It's not some like freak accident that people who work in games want you to like the thing they're working on badly. They don't think about money. When you are making a game, you're not thinking about how much money you're going to make or what the monetization strategy is. That is so far above your head. That is the executives, that is the suits, that is corporate. The people who actually make these games just want you to like them. And every time that you don't like them, it goes, what the hell am I doing this for? Put all my soul and all my energy and all my time, and all these people move to goddamn Bellevue to work at Bungie. They want you to like the game. And while layoffs, yes, happen across multiple industries, this isn't a unique thing. I think the blame is going to the wrong place. From everyone that I know who's worked at Bungie, and I'm trying to be careful to speak about this, very hot right now, I'm not trying to like get news out of it, but the 12 separate people that I asked about this, unanimously across the board, 100% told me that they had shared player sentiment and expressed that they had known that players, people like me, even a lot of the popular Destiny YouTubers, people who've been loyal to Destiny for a very long time, were no longer happy with the product. They are very, very well aware of that. These devs who've been laid off, and they passed that on. That was forwarded and shared repeatedly, and they got laid off anyway. The people who wear the fancy suits still have their jobs. And this is a thing about the games industry that drives me nuts in terms of the community, the relationship between the games community, the journalists, and the devs. I said this in a recent video. I think I said this in my Baldur's Gate video. It really, really, really should be the 3 pillars there against publishers. This like ecosystem we have of the players yelling at the journalists yelling at the players yelling at the devs sitting in silence, is so much useless noise that accomplishes nothing, that is so convenient for the people who are actually making the decisions. The bad decisions, the ones that we don't like. Like, it's so convenient that you go, they deserve to get laid off, they're making a trash game, we don't like the game right now. This is just not the truth. It can't be 100% rate, but the people who work on these games are aware of the product they're making and are doing their damn best and are probably fighting the suits. Wish that we would be better as a like video game culture about applying pressure to the right people. It just drives me nuts to see that kind of rhetoric when it does not work that way. So there's a thing that I realized like I had a disconnect on before I started working in dev, so I'm sure a lot of other people do too. When you see layoffs and you go, oh, they deserved it, oh, the game sucks, the game is only going to get worse. When we talk about budgets for video games, the budgets are really just salaries. The game costs $250 million. Vast majority of that money is salary. Also a marketing budget, office expense budget, But most of that is actually just people. So when there are layoffs, what you are directly seeing is a budget cut. The game is having its budget cut. The game usually still has to come out at the same amount of time because they still have to meet their quarterly earnings to literally stay in business. It's just now with less budget. So anytime there are layoffs and people are like, good, fuck game developers, which is like just the most absurd thing. Again, so convenient for the people actually causing the problems. I'm not saying all devs are perfect, it's just, why are we doing this? The disparity there is so extreme. Basically what you're saying is, yeah, make cheaper games. Make the game worse. There are less people working on it, it has less money put into it. That is what a layoff is. No matter what, the game that you are playing the next time after layoffs is a cheaper version of the same game. You are basically like arguing against quality. A layoff is a reduced budget. They don't have as much money to make good games anymore. That sucks. That sucks for you as a player. That's a thing you should care about if you care about the game or the studio that faced layoffs. And the fact that this is happening across the industry in a year where there have been so many good games, and I keep seeing all these comments being like, good, all games suck now. Are you high out of your mind? We've had so many fantastic games this year. Anyone who says good, all games suck now, in my opinion, does not play many video games and is just like pretending to. You are a fake girl gamer, okay? Video games are really good these days. There are some examples of bad releases, buggy releases, and bad monetization policies, but across the board, 2023, a lot of fucking great video games. My only conclusion can be that you don't really play many. This website is called videogame.layoffs.com and is being routinely updated, and the current estimated total of layoffs is 6,500. That accounts for Unity and Epic, pretty major layoffs, Amazon as well, EA, Embracer Group. I would bet that Unity is going to have even more layoffs. Then it's broken down by company type, and this part really concerns me a lot. 20% console, 20% publisher, 22% online. Indie, AR, and VR have had way less and often go hand in hand, to be perfectly honest. Like, this is such a good case for indie games and how well, frankly, players are supporting indie games. Like, that's only gotten better over the years. But the fact that mobile is so small very strongly indicates to me that all of the companies that are seeing this on console are going to want to go here. That means that there is more growth in the mobile market and more money in the mobile market. Layoffs in the games industry and your attitude being good, all games suck now, it is only going to make them worse. If you are unhappy with the current state of video games, but you still love video games, these statistics are extremely concerning for anybody who likes the console PC market. If you like a AAA action game, if you like anything that comes out of any of those big publishers, you should be super concerned about these stats, not happy about them, because all of these companies, the way that they operate on the market, have to go, okay, how do we stop this? They can't just go indie or go AR, that doesn't work by definition. Certainly can go mobile and pivot to mobile dev, and that is something that I worry about more and more often. You can like gloat and be happy that game devs are getting laid off, but you can't tell me you like video games at the same time is essentially my point. Being happy that people are being laid off is like happy that the entire like system that you love, I presume, is dying in front of you. Please just, if you have any emotion, always direct the anger at the people with the money and not at the people getting laid off and the shit you like being devalued right in front of you, you know? There's some more detail here and it is super interesting where they have the exact studios that have faced layoffs and how many, what kind of games that they made. But yeah, a great resource, last updated on the 9th. Very much appreciate videogame.layoffs.com for showing this. And another facet of this number, of this 6,500 that I think is like a pretty big deal in 2023. Again, I already have the video where I like speak to this very emotionally. If I'm speaking to this in just like a very factual, cold way even, there's a real big human cost for that. 6,500 people who are getting laid off and then seeing all of their friends or peers at other companies get laid off are going to leave the games industry. Not all 6,500, some of them will find jobs elsewhere, but I have had friends who've been laid off over the last 3 years who've said, I'm done in gaming, I'm not doing it anymore. And for every time that happens too, you are losing experienced people. You are losing them for good. We are only having juniors able to join, which is great for people who are up and coming, but not great across the board when we have so many senior roles that needed to be filled in so many of these companies. With every round of layoffs, we lose people who will never come to the games industry again. We lose their years of expertise, passion in their hard work and their enthusiasm. That should be a loss that you, again, as a gamer, I think should feel. You are losing when people get laid off. As for what to do about it, look, I don't really know the answer to that question, but I spoke to some people who have been organizing video game unions. There are a number of them. CD Projekt Red is one of them. They actually worked to form the Polish Game Dev Workers Union, which was in response to layoffs at CD Projekt Red. It's open to anyone working anywhere in the games industry under a Polish contract, although it currently only has a company commission at CD Projekt Red. They said they started talking about unionizing after the 2023 wave of layoffs, and this event created a tremendous amount of stress and insecurity, affecting our mental health and leading to the creation of this union in response. So part of what they're doing with their union is there's more security, transparency, better protection, stronger voices in times of crisis. Mass layoffs are a danger to game dev industry, and they 100% are, and we believe that unionizing is a way for us to preserve the industry's potential. The union said its priority was to give staff a voice in company decision-making with a view to increasing employment stability, which seems like a win for all of the employees. It also wants to help workers' voices be heard on working conditions on the long run. And the union founders actually said the studio had been making great strides in improving working conditions, especially in eliminating crunch, which is huge and awesome, and we love to hear it, especially considering how well received Phantom Liberty has been. And this is such a good case for that. So they said there was no crunch, certainly not to the same extent with the base game. There were overtime hours for those willing, paid or taken as vacation days, meaning that they get the time back if they spend the time. And the entire development of Phantom Liberty has proven that when you treat an employee well, he gives more of himself and the end result of his work is better. That translates into higher quality product. Trade union exists to maintain this high standard of working conditions and improve those elements that could be better. And that's the thing that really makes me feel strongly about the positives of these unions, again, as someone who just doesn't know much about unions. That the quality of games there is also going to be better if people aren't overworked, overtired, overstressed, agitated with one another, knowing they are protected, not panicking about losing their job. The quality of the actual releases has a chance to be better as well. It's just better for everybody across the board. That is most of my case here, is just to say, the people saying the worst stuff in response to this, which people have been doing, in my own comments section, they deserved it. Games suck nowadays anyway. Make better games. Don't be lazy, devs. You are getting mad at the wrong person and shooting yourself in the foot if you actually like video games. The layoffs are really bad for you too. So scared of every studio that I love going to the mobile market. I'm so scared of it happening. And every new round of layoffs, I'm like, fuck. Is the industry I love, is there still a world for the industry that I love and the games that I love? They're not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't mean to fearmonger. It's just thinking about the future, you know? I'm concerned about the direction, and increasingly so this year. 6,500